Hi guys, welcome to SJ Masterclass, a podcast where two friends and avid readers are working to build an encyclopedia of the universe written by Sarah J. Maas, one series at a time, cross-referencing as we go through the text. We will discuss theme, characters, plot points throughout the Massverse, and go wherever the conversation leads us. This week we are reviewing chapters 36 through 40 of ACOTAR, Thorns, and Roses. I'm Rev, one of your hosts. I'm an ER nurse by night, a knitter, a lifelong reader, and a dog mom.
Hi guys, I'm Kat. I'm also one of your hosts. I'm an ER nurse by day, a cat mom, reader, and knitter the rest of the time. Each episode, we're going to start with a brief review of the chapters that we're discussing, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details. This podcast will be extremely spoiler-heavy for both ACOTAR and potentially for Sarah J. Maas's other works, so listen at your own risk. But we're excited to be part of this awesome book club and hope you enjoy reading along. Rev, do you want to get us into a chapter summary for 36 through 40?
I would love to. Chapter 36, Feyre faces her first of the three trials, fighting the Midgard worm, and she kills it. Rhys was the only person who bet on her to win. Chapter 37, Feyre showing signs of infection. Rhys comes to help heal her, but it turns into a fairy bargain. Rhys will heal Feyre in exchange for what they settle on is 1 week per month of Feyre's life, and that 1 week per month has to be spent in Night Court. Ooh. The Lady of Autumn Court, who is loved by all, as we've previously read, helps Feyre to perform one of her impossible chores. The lady says it is in thanks for Feyre giving her real name to Amarantha in an effort to save Lucien. Rhys threatens Feyre's guards and tells them to stop assigning her these chores, and he mind alters them that they should kill themselves with their daggers if they give her any more chores. Feyre gets body painted and is forced to drink and dance for Rhys all night, multiple times. Amarantha forces Rhys to mind kill a high fae of the summer court after he attempts to escape under the mountain. Feyre faces the second of Amarantha's three trials, and she's unable to read the riddle that the trial is designed around. Rhys helps her complete the trial, finds out she is unable to read, and tells her that he's going to have her learn to read during her time that she has to spend in Night Court. That is a basis of where all of our besties are at. Kat, where do you want to start with some details?
There is so much in these chapters, I don't even know where to start. So I'm just going to start with the first of my book club questions that I could think of. Why is Tamlin so distant to Feyre throughout this whole Under the Mountain? If she's going to die in the first trial, as everyone except Rhys thinks will happen, what is the harm in expressing some kind of affection or acknowledgement of her? We know he does that to Lucien to spare Lucien's life. What is the worst thing that would happen?
So I have the same question written differently. Mine says, why is Tamlin so stoic, continuing through this chapter chunk? Contrast that to Rhys is all out helping her, right? Mm-hmm. He is taking care of her, sneaking down to help, do good things for her, keeping her company. He openly bets on her to win the first task. And at the end of one of the chapters, we hear Amarantha be like, Rhys, can you come over here, please? And I, first of all, can't understand why he's so blatant and why Tamlin is so afraid to not do anything. But to answer your question, these two lead male characters' behaviors and actions, I think it's on 361. If Tamlin was playing indifferent to keep us both safe, so would I. But then I've also heard you mention in the past, this maybe isn't Tamlin at some point in time, sitting next to Amarantha. And so if he's doing it for Lucien, could he possibly also be doing it for Feyre? And that is kind of the only answer I have to provide for the answer to your question.
Well, so I think at this point it is Tamlin sitting there. We just know that in the final trial, spoiler, that it is not Tamlin sitting next to Amarantha. She sees him sitting there. That's why she's so confused. And that's why we're told, or she is told, don't trust your senses.
By Alice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is something I want to touch on later. But then it's after the first trial and Lucien can finally come down. And she says, did Rhys make me do anything. This is at the party. And Lucien says, yes. He made you dance for him to get a rise out of Tamlin. Did it work? No. He's playing a dangerous game. So part of me thinks that like this goes back to the Tamlin of, I will figure this out without doing the Beauty and the Beast plot. I will figure another way out, which we've talked about in previous episodes, but he's not doing anything. It's classic Tamlin. He just is sitting back trying to figure out an idea. He stops sending out his sentinels. He stops trying, and his court leaves him. Now he's just sitting there playing a dangerous game. What he's doing is he's making a fool of her love, which she is repeatedly doing all of these trials for. I just don't understand his motivation here. And I don't think we will. Like, I think this is an open question.
In response to that, on page 335, Feyre justifies Tamlin's actions, and, you know, you can kind of see that she thinks he is the one. He is the love of her life. And at the very top of that page, she says something about how Nesta would have had some of the same actions as being proactive to go and save that person that you love. Nesta would have done it for her. Nesta would have done it for Elaine. I think in Feyre's head, she is justifying Tamlin's actions by saying all of this is for love. And then a few pages before that, on page 327, about having to prove her love, and that she had proved her love, and then some. I think that, like, if there is any way that Feyre is justifying in her mind what this is, it has to do with this great fairy tale level love for each other. But I think you're right. This is from Feyre's perspective. This is not what Tamlin is actually doing, which is more visibly obvious to an outside reader who's a little bit more judgmental and less involved in the love component. It could be that he's just sitting there racking his brain for some way to fix this, because I do think multiple times that I've said, I think he doesn't love her. At times I think he does. It's really hard to say. At this point, I think he does love her, or at least doesn't want her to be tortured and doesn't want her to die. And he's trying to figure out how to fix it. And being reactionary and causing Amarantha to see, on top of Rhys making all these blatant actions towards Feyre, and Lucien, and the Lady of Autumn Court snuck down there as well. How many people do we have helping her that maybe he's like, she's already walking on thin ice, man. I just gotta chill out.
I've got two things to say about what you've said, but the first one is, on the other side of that, 3 other people are helping her. Why can't he? If anything, why is Rhys able to help her, who's supposed to be Amarantha's favorite play toy, right?
Yeah, why? How is this all going down?
I was gonna say, my other point is, you made a really good point just now about how Feyre is able to justify Tamlin's actions, where she's like trying to think this through, and it's on 335, where we kind of learn just the complexity of her feelings and Tamlin's love, and like what she's, yes, he has done this and this and this, but he also did this and this and this for me. I think this has become a character trait for Feyre, because the last sentence of this chapter chunk is, after Rhysand licks her tears. It took me a long while.
Also kind of gross.
Kind of gross.
I don't like it.
Look, we will never kink shame on this podcast. And I say that
it's supposed to be romantic, but I don't like it personally.
It's not my kink, but I will never shame someone who enjoys this. But so it took me a long while to realize that Rhysand, whether he knew it or not, had effectively kept me from shattering completely. And she thinks something similar when he twists her arm when after the first trial, which for years, how many times have we talked to people and been like, I know he hurts her, but like there has to be a reason. Is it because she is spiraling? Is it to knock her out of her own head? And the only way he can do it is to be the villain. Again, here, he is doing something that she's like, that's gross. And then he also says, was it? Beneath all your pride and stubbornness, I could have sworn I detected something that felt differently.
And he knows.
And he knows. He's playing with her. But on the same side, Feyre is creating reason for it to be okay. Is that because she is a fish out of water, because she is the only one there? Or is this a new character trait of Feyre?
I think it has to do with something that you said a few episodes ago, and then I said it again the very next episode after that. I think she's young and she's expecting this big love story, and this is what we get. The other thing is you've talked about 3 of my other points already, and you're one single point. I don't even know where to go, but here's where I'll go. Page 333. Not very consensual when he grabs her arm and twists it and fixes it. Page 335. Let's talk about this tattoo in the eye for the fairy bargain that they made. Page 350. Forces her to drink and dance. These are all merciful protective actions, but how do we justify these and reconcile these when we have harped so hard on the idea of consent so much, but then also relating to the mercy idea? On page 357, Rhys mercy kills the Lord of Summercourt. That's his version of mercy.
One of the lords. It's not the High Lord.
It's weird because there's a couple times where the sentences are a little confusing about it, but
Agreed.
Sure. In his mind, he is doing these merciful actions. Also, like I said, the amount we've talked about consent. How do we justify all these things and being like, it's okay when Rhys does it, it's not okay when Tamlin does it?
Well, but it's not just in his mind or in her mind, because we see Tarquin. So one of the things I love in this book is we are introduced to Eris, even though we don't get a name. We are introduced to Tarquin, even though we don't get a name. And we see through Feyre's eyes that the High Lord of the Summer Court sags in relief when Rhysand says, nope, it was just this one guy trying to escape. The implication being that it wasn't, that this was a plot. But I think we learn in book 2, so this is something we need to pay attention to. When they go to the Summer Court, what is the conversation between Rhys and Tarquin? I think Tarquin says something about, like, thank you for not saying anything. Feyre then thinks no one else realizes what he has done. They all call him a whore, they call him horrible names, and he walks to the table and drinks wine. We are seeing the villain behind the curtain, and sometimes he has to do bad things to keep that visage up, but also he is very smart. He is very aware of who is watching where.
One of the other points that I said you had kind of talked about, there's so many that you talked about in your one point. The next one is 355 to 357-ish. Rhys is talking about what it takes to be a High Lord. Making choices that cost lives is what Rhys says. Tamlin did do that. Andress.
He did, but he stopped doing it. He only started back up again because everybody was like, please, we have to do something.
But then Rhys continues to be Amarantha's whore, right? And it sounds like the Summer Court people are not as familiar with what it is going to take to be a High Lord, which is making tough decisions. And so I think this is how we get into in some of the next books where we have these conversations with Tarquin. But like Rhys understands, and he's like, you know what? I know how much this sucks. I got to mercy kill this guy for the betterment of everyone. It's almost like that philosophy class, like totalitarian philosophy. What's better for the greater good is better for each individual. But like he's addressing it and saying, I will own that I did these bad things. It's also why he always has his hands in his pocket. He's always picking lint off. He does these bad things. He's willing to be the bad guy. Why he does these things to Feyre when he grabs her arm and twists it and fixes it. I think he's just saying, I'm old enough and experienced to know that if I want to be the good guy and the hero, sometimes it's going to take me being a bad guy.
But it's interesting that you mentioned this part where Rhys is talking about what it takes to be a High Lord, because we learned in the last chapter chunk that we have 3 new High Lords. Tarquin, the Day Court, which is Helion, and the Winter Court, which is Callias. And we learned so much about them in the next few books. But I think you're right. Rhysand is able to say, I know what it takes to make hard decisions. I understand that I'm coming into this cell and hurting you, but he also understands she is the only way that they're going to get out from under the mountain. This is not something that they can rebel against Amarantha. This is not something that is going to just disappear with time, as Tamlin kind of implies it will earlier. They have one chance, and that is her. And right now, he is her only chance. So sometimes you have to do something that people don't like to make sure that your people don't die. We have already seen him say, I will do anything for my court, including hurt a little human girl. He did it to Claire. He tortured her.
So you just spoke about like two different examples of one of the other things I wanted to talk about, which was, why did Amarantha ask Rhys to put the severed head in the spring court garden? He was already willing to take down Claire Bador. He's also willing to physically hurt Feyre in the moment, which eventually makes her stronger and better to face the next tasks. But I do not recall us ever finding out why Amarantha asked Rhys to put this head in the court.
I don't
was
think
the
we
point?
do. Was it just to remind him that she's there, remind him of a timeline? I don't think we ever find out. I think this is one of those like small little things that maybe we have hyper fixated on that is important in the moment, but I don't know.
But Amarantha doesn't ask Rhys to do this on behalf of her. There is the Valeris, there's the Night Court tattoo on the person's whatever portion of the neck that is still
like behind
available.
The ear, I don't know.
So, like, it's another dead end. Can you say Vaughn?
Right. He will have his book one day. We're still owed another Throne of Glass book. We will get either Vaughn's book or Fenris's book. It'll happen.
Fenris Moonbane. I'm going to talk about him a little bit later.
So will I. Can we talk about, just because you've already mentioned it, the eye tattoo?
Let's.
Like, there is so much that we can talk about with this, but also so many crossover potentials for this. Because, well, first of all, the fact that, so we have an eye tattoo. Amarantha took Lucien's eye. She has kept Julian's eye. Julian is conscious through his eye. We see that there are points where Feyre is able to feel what Rhysand is feeling. But then also in Throne of Glass, we have the Eye of Elena that Selena wears, which is like,
girl, what are you doing to me right now?
Right? Like it's a protective thing. It doesn't have superpowers, but it is a huge part of the book. And I'm trying to remember if there's any eye in Crescent City.
I mean,
we'll have to keep an eye on it, pun intended.
I like what you did there. There is the fact that people are like always watching them, kind of like an eye in the sky, but I don't know if it's ever specifically like mentioned like that, or when they do the drop, like there's people watching them specifically like on computer software to see how much of their first light they're donating. I don't even know what to think about this or how to reply to it, because all I can say is, can we put it in the encyclopedia and keep an eye on it? Because you just mind blew me this morning with all of the eye references.
Oh, and that was the other thing. So it's an eye tattoo that she thinks blinks at her at one point, and we know that she can feel through it. But also in Throne of Glass, Captain Rolfe has the tattoo that also moves, and it's also on his hands.
It's the one where he sees the ships and all the things, and it's like a tattoo of the ocean
and
on his hand.
And he like sold his soul for it, or he gets it from some great power, which is how she gets hers. Like, there's so many repeated themes that seem so inconsequential. But then when you look at it, you're like, but these are huge points for the stories and for those characters.
I mean, we could also talk about the tattoos that Rowan has, and like how those are meaningful of like, maybe they don't move and they're not active, but like how important the tattoos are for different people.
But also that he's the one who puts the tattoos on the cadre. And then what about when Aelin loses all of her scars and all of her tattoos? And Rowan tattoos her.
He tattoos
with
her.
word marks. And her tattoo is described as swirls and whirls.
Mm-hmm. Just like Feyre's body and Tamlin's body at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the point where she paints herself in the fecal mud of when she's running around the Midgard worm maze. Body paint of entire bodies. Compare that with the permanent body paint of how many people have tattoos. And this body decoration in the meaning of what happens when you do something to your body. And then Rhys painting her with all these swirls and whirls. So like, how much of this is important to not even people's identity, but people's mental protection from everything that has gone on and everything that will go on in the world. Like, their bodies are their canvas that is a visual representation of the things that they're trying to do with their mind.
When she gets out of the second trial, Rhys starts talking to her. Is it through his Diamante power, or is it through the tattoo? Because she feels his sadness at some point when she tries to be snarky and she's like, well, your court felt too. And she feels his sadness. How similar is this to when Rowan and Aelin are talking down their bond before they know that they're mates? Are Feyre and Rhys talking through the tattoo, or are they talking through the bond?
I mean, you think that Rhys doesn't know yet.
I know.
I think Rhys does know. There's so many references to him knowing.
But Rowan and Aelin didn't know. They were adamantly like, he already had a mate. And she was in her human/fae forms.
Even though he didn't know, it doesn't mean it wasn't true. Because if we go back to where I said, there is a chance that based on what the Suriel says is when he says, go return to him, she hadn't met Rhys yet. So the Suriel, we know, as well as the Bone Carver and the Striga, have been around forever and ever and ever. So are Rowan and Aelin / Rhys and Feyre / Hunt and Bryce these mates that already have this mating bond established and their souls are just reborn? And so this link would already be established between them. And so they don't realize it's not the tattoo that we're talking down. I think one of the other things that maybe supports my point is all of the touch her and die trope moments that happen in this chapter chunk. There are so many of them. 344, 347, 348, just to name a few. And him making the deal with Feyre to come to Night Court. Like, I think this is all set up that mentally he knows right now.
I do not disagree with you, because why else is he going to say for the rest of her life she has to come visit him 1 week a month? But the other side of that is, because he asks, or she asks, why are you doing this? And he's like, well, by doing this, I save you. And by saving you, I save Tamlin. And that's the real question.
That is the first thing I wanted to talk about. And I didn't force it because you got to bring on details for this chapter chunk. But that is the first thing I wanted to talk about. What the F does that mean? Feyre, this is the real question, isn't it? And this is on 356. And this is such a big deal for me.
I think the reason he makes this deal is as a big F you to Tamlin. I have power over you. And I think another theme throughout this chapter chunk in this book is possession. Tamlin earlier on tells her, I don't like to lose, or I don't like losing my things. She thinks Tamlin, my Tamlin. And Rhys says, the reason I'm having you painted is because I don't like people touching my things. Possession, possession, possession. How angry, and we know Tamlin has anger issues, how angry is he going to be when he finds out that his Feyre has to go to, of all people, Rhysand of the Night Court for 1 week? Go for your pin.
So I have connected this, why he's like, well, that's the real question, isn't it? With the fact that on 347, Rhys says, "You look just like I hope you would." And way back, several episodes ago, on page 212, Tamlin says the same thing. "You look just like what I hoped you would look like." And so I'm guessing, does Rhys know a seer that has already given him hints? Has his Diamante powers allowed him to look into Elaine's mind a little bit? Is she already a little bit of a seer?
Has he seen Elaine?
No, he hasn't. That's the whole thing, is like the only person that's seen Elaine is Tamlin for sure, but did Lucien go on his behalf to make that deal? Did Rhys look into Lucien's mind and see Elaine? I don't know. This is straight up like, "You looked just like I hope you would." Two people have said that to her, and two people have interacted, or what we think is possibly two people have interacted with Elaine, who we know eventually becomes a seer. But why is Rhys saying these things about, well, that's the real question, isn't it? It's like he knows something about the future that none of the rest of us know. And the whole thing, "You look just like I had hoped you would." Like he had been seeing her.
I took this very similarly to you. So on 247, "You look just as I hoped you would." 212, "You're exactly as I dreamed you'd be." I took this to mean we know that Rhys sees into Feyre's mind. He sees the dresser that she's painting. We find out later, I think, in next book. But what if Tamlin also was dreaming of his mate? And he almost saw like a gossamer coated figure, because she's not Fey, she's human. So there's a literal wall separating. And what if he was seeing Elaine, but he thinks it is Feyre? Because we know that Feyre and Nesta look like their mother. But the mercenary makes a point of saying, "Well, I know those are your two sisters because you have the same hair." What if Tamlin thought he was seeing Feyre in his dream and instead is getting visions of his mate and it's Elaine? Do I say this just because it then proves my point that they're going to be endgame? No, of course not. I would never.
But it could also lead to how Rhys gets access to that information, that if he's messing around with Tamlin and Lucien's mind, and we don't quite see it all the time, does this play anything into something he could have done if he had to go put the head in the garden? Could he have been in closer proximity to all them and been looking in everyone's mind? Like, I just don't know. But it's so much not foreshadowing. It's so much factual. These are things that I already know.
And we know he has had control of Lucien's mind twice so far in this book. Once in the Spring Court, once when Feyre gives her name for his.
And he enters her mind too.
Hmm?
She can feel the claws like digging and scratching on the outside of her mind. So is he digging to be like, is this the girl? Is this not? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Since we are talking Rhys and Feyre, I just want to make a note. This kind of goes with crossovers and themes, the idea of the bargain. Because in Crescent City, we have Micah and Hunt. We have Therian and the Viper Queen. We have Bryce and the Underking. All make bargains or deals with one another. We have Aelin and Maeve. We have, obviously, Rhys and Feyre. We have Cassian and Nesta. There are deals all over the place. And I just think it is interesting how those relate to the characters and how their story arcs almost take a 180 each time they make these deals.
Can I say a deal that you make with someone is kind of like a promise or an oath that you make with someone?
A promise, yes.
How much do those need to be categorized in our encyclopedia under our oaths and promises and change the title to Oaths and Promises and Deals?
Mm-hmm.
Because a deal is a promise that you've made with someone. You're going to do this, I'm going to do that.
I mean, you could argue that Feyre makes the bargain with her mother, and the prize is that her family stays together.
She fulfills her end, and guess what? Her family stays together.
Mm-hmm.
In the long run, regardless of whose fault it is, it happens.
Mm-hmm. But then my little side question is, if we have Feyre and Rhys making a bargain, Cassian and Nesta, does that mean Azriel will be making a bargain in his? I
With
am
Gwen?
here for it. I mean, whoever. I mean, if it is a redheaded priestess, whatever.
No
I just have
oppose.
thoughts and feelings.
This is a little change of topic. When we talk about the first trial, so Feyre has 3 trials from Amarantha. The first one, she wins this trial completely based on every single one of her hunting strengths.
Mm-hmm.
The second trial, she almost loses it because she can't read. That's so first trial, strength, hunting. Second trial, weakness, not being able to read. When you put it so blatantly as that, I really have to ask, why do you think SJM wants to contrast these capabilities or incapabilities of Feyre? It's kind of so discreet until you think about it. And once you think about it, I feel like you can't unsee it. It's so blatant that Feyre's strength is this, she wins this, Feyre's weakness is this, and she almost loses it. Is this just a tool that the author uses to demonstrate character growth once we get to future books? Or is it maybe both in that it is that, but it is also showing of why she and Rhysand are mates? Because he's the only person that's going to sit her down and mercifully make her learn how to read.
But Tamlin does offer to teach her to read. And she does start trying to learn. We all know
the lyrics.
Right. We all know our thoughts on Tamlin, but like he does try. Her pride gets in the way. And I think when she's in the Night Court, we'll see when we get there, she doesn't have the luxury of being prideful because she is there as a bargain. But to answer your question, I hadn't considered this when I was reading it because I was just so, you're right, it is so subtle. But, you know, I was reading it and I'm like, when Feyre is smart, she is so smart. She is creating a trap. She is able to calculate, do the mathematical calculation of where she is going to land on this very small spot where she has not put all these bones. She knows that when you are hunting, that if you get a animal in its lair, you've lost it because it has a second exit. And then we get her to the second one, and it's not only her weakness, because, yeah, she's illiterate, but the way she thinks out the answer. 1 is a lonely number. 2 is me and Tamlin. 3 is my sisters. What does that have to do with the riddle that you're trying to figure out about the grasshopper? Absolutely nothing. That is immature, and that is more immature than a 19-year-old should be thinking. That is like a toddler's way of being like, well, 1 is me, and 2 is me and mommy, and 3 is me and mommy and daddy. That is what she does in this trial. And it has frustrated me until you've pointed out it is highlighting her, not just her ignorance, but her deficit.
I also think that what she actually said is like 1, just her alone. The reason she decides on 2 is it's her and Tamlin. Mm-hmm. And the reason she doesn't choose 3 is because she thinks it's her sisters. But actually, if we take about everything we have been talking about up till now, I think 3 is her and Tamlin and Rhysand.
Oh, I would have said her and Tamlin and Lucien.
And that is why she has to reach for 3, because redemption arc, Tamlin, Elaine, save the world. I think their trifecta, this relationship between the 3 of them, has to work out the way it does so that things end up working out its fate. I think she's mistaken. Or, I mean, maybe it has to do with her and the 3 sisters and it being like Nesta's abilities that she gets once she turns into a Fae from the Cauldron, and Elaine's abilities once she gets turned into a Fae from the Cauldron.
Or it's none of this. It is answering a question we never learned. It's answering a question that we never learn. We
never learn the riddle.
It is about a grasshopper. That has nothing to do with her or Tamlin or Lucien or her sisters. It has to do with 3 grasshoppers hop over a river. 1 of them falls down. How many cross the river? 2.
Is that actually it? Because we don't ever hear it.
We never hear it. But like that is the equivalent, right? Like
I would like to know if this is like an age-old Celtic
But
riddle.
We don't have enough information, right? Like all we know is
have you Googled it?
No, I
haven't. And I want to.
I want to talk about Lucien because again, this is my Lucien read, and we learn a little bit more about him. When Rhysand goes to the Spring Court, he makes a threat against the Lady of the Autumn Court, and that stops Lucien, and Tamlin is like, enough. We learn a lot about him, and I think we actually see his relationship with his mother. We see her here, and she is helping Feyre during the first chore, and she says, my debt is paid for giving your name for my son's life. And then Feyre feels or smells her magic, which smells like chestnuts and fire. Now, is that because she's the Lady of the Autumn Court, or is that something different? Like this sense of smell, which is different than the magic that we've been smelling before.
But all the magic before has smelled tangy. This does not smell tangy. It's also very autumnal, if you will.
Yes. And so does that mean like she still has her powers, but because we know Tamlin's has been corrupted, that his magic smells bad? But going back to Lucien, when she says, I didn't know you would come just because you have this oath to Tamlin, and he's like, you gave your name for me. Even after everything I've said, everything I've done, everything that's happened between us, you saved my life. I had to pay you back.
Are these some of the quotes that we see on 352 and 353? I think it is, because I have that written down as one of my points as well. I'm just going to circle it because
you offered up your name for me. After all that I said to you, all I did, you still offered your name. Didn't you realize I would help you after that? Oath or no oath. This is why...
This is after she points out to him, after he already says, like, what were you thinking? Didn't you know I'd come? As soon as I possibly was able to do so. And she's like, how was I supposed to think that when we were having that situation with the Naga after I escaped the Suriel, you didn't even come to help me. So like they're really fleshing this out.
I think this, again, I mean, I know apparently this is who I am, but like this is why he is the better male than Tamlin. Lucien has already lost an eye because of Tamlin. Well, not because of Tamlin. He went and spoke out of turn. But he has just been whipped 20 times by the High Lord, who probably could not have used like lesser whips. He probably had to use all of his strength. We know he wasn't able to come to her sooner because she had stopped his healing. And yet the first thing he does is he comes to her. And he's like, what were you thinking? I was going to come for you.
Do you know what else he does here? He gives her a cloak.
He gives her a cloak while she is in prison under the mountain.
That sounds just like what Aelin does for Kaltain. I think that what I've come to believe is this giving somebody a cloak is comparable to helping someone in a time of need with a not so small gesture that really helps out their well-being, that shows that like, I want this person to live. I'm not just doing small deeds to like give them a kernel of food. Like I gave them a cloak, something that is long lasting. And what I think the final decision I've come to is this is something that builds a bridge of trust between two people that is going to be important later game. And I think if we explore her giving the cloak to the Suriel, Aelin giving a cloak to Kaltain, Elaine asking for a cloak, Lucien giving a cloak to Feyre, I think this has a lot to do with a established way of building trust with a person that you are going to have to depend on in the future.
It's been a long time since I've read Crescent City. I wonder if there's a cloak given to someone in book 3 when they are trapped by the Asteri, or if we see it in a flashback with Hunt.
I don't know and don't remember. We all know. What do I remember? Nothing. But I'm going to be paying special attention to it. If this is your Lucien read, this is my cloak read.
I love it. One thing I want to make sure we talk about is when she went down into the mountain, Alice says, don't listen to your senses. They will lie to you. In the first trial, that is all she can focus on. She survives that trial because of her hunting skills, but also because she realizes that the Mittengard is blind. It does not have a sense of sight. It can only find her by its sense of smell. She knows not to go into its tunnel because then she will be blinded. She recognizes the texture of the bone by the way it feels, not because she turns around and sees it. That entire trial is sense-based, and she wins it because she trusts herself and trusts her senses.
Why does Alice tell her not to trust her senses? And also the very close relationship of Alice being from Summer Court and having this whole interaction with one of the High Fae of Summer Court happening in this chapter chunk. Like, there's a big connection there, and I don't know what it is yet.
We know that in the third trial, I don't know the wording because we haven't gotten there, she sees Tamlin next to Amarantha, and then she sees him down kneeling in front of her, and she's like, this can't be him because I see him up there. So is this maybe a clue of the tricks Amarantha will play? Like, maybe Alice knows Amarantha more than we think she does? I don't know. But it was just like, the last thing we think is, don't you trust your senses? And then she needs to trust her senses. But then also when she's with Rhysand, her senses are blinded and dulled because of the wine.
I don't know what it means or where it's going to end up, but it seems significant at this point in time. So I don't know. It is a mystery to me, and I cannot trust my senses to decipher it.
We are Feyre. It is through Feyre's point of view. We are Feyre.
It's just so weird that it's so contrasting.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just the fact that the last thing we hear is don't do this, but that's the thing that saves her. So What do you want to move on to next?
What was Amarantha's obsession with Feyre's name? I realize throughout the course of the book, Amarantha has to try and make sure the B&B plot does not come to fruition. That's why when she finds out Claire Bador's name, she grabs her, kills her, does all the torturing, etc. But after Claire Bador is already killed, Feyre gets to Under the Mountain, Amarantha is still obsessed with their name. But why does she want to know her name now? She knows who she is. She knows this is the girl that's going to fulfill the B&B plot. It doesn't matter if she knows her name or not.
But also, the B&B plot's done. They lost. I think this goes back to fairy lore and mythology. How, like you said in, I think it was episode 1, don't dance with the fae, you'll dance all night. Don't drink the wine, you'll come under their power. If you give them your name, they have power over you.
Your true name.
Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing I can think. Because I too was like, well, what is the significance of this? But I do think it has to do with maybe having power over her. And she does. It's also a way to have fear. I mean, Feyre is scared of her. She's mad at her. She hates her. But there's also fear in the power that this female has over everyone under the mountain.
And she is like so powerful that she has usurped all of the High Lord's powers for the most part.
Right. And when you think about it, like, they are also prisoners. When we finally see Rhysand's room here, it is a cell without a lock. There's no windows. And for the High Lord of the Night Court to not be able to see the night, it's, High Lord of the Day Court not being able to see the sunshine. It must be very hard. And we know later on that she would make him service her on Starfall. But how, if we're going to talk about that just briefly, how different is that from what Maeve makes the cadre do with the Blood Oath? Rhysand says if she wants us to stop breathing, we stop breathing. The cadre in Throne of Glass, at one point, Fenris has to service Maeve in the blood of his brother. It is these super powerful evil women who have these powers, but also the rest of them are just prisoners. And I think we forget that. And I think it's the lashing out of everyone else under the mountain towards Rhysand because maybe he has, more luxuries than others, but at the end of the day, he's still just a prisoner.
That leads me to two of the last points. The first one being, since we're talking right on top of it, the ACOTAR, where it talks about him having bat-like wings versus Illyrian warriors versus Maeve versus the Valg that are potentially sent from hell in the princes or the devils of hell. Like, all of these people are represented so similarly in the way they're described, the way that the author writes these people out so visually in our head, we see them very similarly. Like, that's really interesting into what that opens up for future books about where these relationships are going to end up. Do we have people double crossing each other? Do we actually have the right side winning? Do we have people that were bad guys but then became good guys? There's just so many comparisons, and we know SJM doesn't do stuff on accident.
I think it's definitely worth keeping an eye on, because I think next book, when they go to the human lands, the ACOTAR comes after Feyre again, so we'll get more of a image of them, and we'll be able to also compare Illyrian wings, because right now we only see Rhysand's wings, but in book 3 we see the guys who have the angel wings and compare them to Crescent City wings and of like Hunt and all of the angels. But I don't know that Maeve has any wings, does she?
I don't think she does. I don't recall hearing it. It doesn't mean that she's not related and we just don't see them.
And I think somewhere along the line, or maybe this is a fan theory, is that the Illyrians have come from a cross between human and something else. Because they don't have pointed ears. They've got curved ears. And I think somewhere in one of the books or book series, we learn where they come from. So that would be worth noting. If they were across, like, you know how in Throne of Glass, the bad guys were trying to like create crosses between the witches. I think that would be worth watching.
Next point.
Next point I want to bring up is something that you've touched on in this episode, which is that Feyre was alone. And I feel like this is something that we see throughout her solitude. She's alone in her cell for days at a time. She was alone in the village. She was the lone person going out and getting the food for her family. She was the one that went to market to change things out. Yes, her sisters followed, but she was the one going up and making those deals. In the spring court, she is alone. She cannot connect with these people. But in the first trial, Rhysand is the first person who sees her. He is the one who says she's putting mud on her so that she will be invisible. He's the one who sends the music down later on to help her. And then she finds her people in the night court. I just think it's interesting to note, like, her solitude leaves when she has Rhysand.
I think a lot of Feyre's aloneness really has to do with her knowing, first of all, who she is, and that she does not have to befriend anyone or be part of a group to be successful in whatever she's going to endeavor and do in life. But we see that difference once she gets to Night Court. It is not her having to befriend anyone. It's finding kindred spirits and getting to befriend people. And I love this aloneness for her so much because we see it for what feels like forever. And then we see her blossom in Night Court, not just the learning how to read, finding people who do see her as kindred spirits, because they also kind of are alone in that they're in Night Court and they're separated from everyone. And
they're
so
the miscreants.
she does not have to be anybody other than she is to realize she fits in perfectly with these people.
It's like we see Cassian say, I know what it's like not to have know where my next meal is going to be. There's this scene when she is like fighting and training with him, and she realizes that she has burned through his gloves, and he's like, keep going, I can take it. There's no judgment. She has found someone who accepts her for who she is. And this is Cassian. This isn't even her mate. I think you're right. She grows so much once she becomes a Fae and once she goes to the Night Court. Once she is not trapped by her human form and also by Tamlin.
What's also all of these other people that she's encountered with in her life before she gets to Night Court are people who are putting on airs, people who are keeping up the vision that they have created for themselves to try and make things more normal. And Night Court is like, you know what's normal? Be weird. That's okay. We're all a little bit weird here.
Right. I don't have to do a tithe because I have a kingdom that runs itself. I don't have to do this because why would I? Starfall is a celebration. It's not a duty. And I think when she gets to the Night Court, she realizes that her life doesn't have to be that way.
Even with her sisters, her life has to be that way. Her sisters, Nesta and Elaine, and her dad are all worried about the money situation. And granted, I'll say this, the money situation in Night Court, they have so many resources that they don't have to worry about it. So I also don't want to take away from the fact that saying when you don't have resources, there's a lot more things that you are forced to do to make your life work. But it's nice that she gets there and she realizes at the same time that they have enough resources and money and food and all these other things to say, we don't have to conform. In her first life as living in the village in the human lands, it is really hard for their entire family to live a comfortable life
for the whole
when
village.
They've been ostracized.
Well, but the whole village, right? Like, there's a point where she's hunting and someone, I think it's Thomas Mandray, sees her and she's like, keep walking. He sees her with the rabbits, or thinks back to a time she saw him with the rabbits and saw the hunger in his eyes. They're all just striving to get by. And when you think of it, not to give the Spring Court, any excuses, but he's lost a lot of his court. They saw the way he was ruling and they were like, nope, this is not going to be for us. We're going to go anywhere else. Where would you like to go next?
I think this is one of the last things that I have that was super important to me, which was, I know this is going to come as a huge surprise. I forgot about the Night Court Shadow Twins. I forgot
Nuala
about
and
something.
Caradwyn.
Yeah. And it made me think the only other twins that I could think of were the silent but deadly twins of, I'm sorry, brace yourself, of the 13.
The twins I think of Fenris and Connell.
Fenris Moonbeam.
Look, Throne of Glass is my favorite series. Fenris is my sweet angel who nothing bad can happen to, even though a lot of bad happens to him.
So here's some other things that I found about twins that Sarah J. Maas has written about. There are the Crescent City twins, who are Lydia's sons, Brannon and Actaeon. And we know Brannon is named after, is it Aelin's grandfather or one of Aelin's ancestors that's Brannon? We also learn about Seamus and Duncan Donnell. These are the brothers of Cormac. Cormac is one of the cadre of Rune. Cousins of Cormac in Crescent City. We also have Sandriel and Shandahar. They play a pretty big deal in the influence of what has happened in Crescent City. In Throne of Glass, there's this one guy and his twin brother. His name is Fenris Moonbeam, and Connell. So he is a twin. Mm-hmm. In ACOTAR, this is a huge deal. I think this is the biggest one that I've announced yet, is the Striga, who is the Weaver, who I've also been watching The Witcher, and they have Strigas in The Witcher. Love that. Striga and Bonecarver. Bonecarver's the guy that's under the mountain.
He's in the prison.
He's in the prison that's like under one of the fortresses that's on top of a mountain. And he and Striga are twins, and their older brother is Koshi, which is who I think the next books are about. And then Feline and Felon.
Do you know what's wild?
From the 13.
As you're labeling these,
Sorry.
the two witches die. One of the archangels dies prior to the book starting. Connell dies. Cormac's cousins, don't they die? Or does one of them die?
I'm just going to tell you. Guess what I'm going to say? I don't remember.
Always ask these questions, and one day you will come back and be like, actually,
I remember this.
I do remember
One day
this.
I'm gonna. Maybe I'll read super far ahead to surprise you one day.
But I'm amazed at how many of the twins die.
I mean, I'm not, because like
everybody dies.
We already said this is Game of Thrones level of potential to be killed off by the writer. Like, this is Game of Thrones level. Anyone is up for death.
I forgot that the wraiths were considered high fae. I don't know what I considered them, but I forgot that they were high fae, but I did remember that they were made out of shadow. But my question about them was, why are they there? How did they end up with him, with Rhysand, and not his inner court? And I'll have to pay attention, because I think he does mention it. I think in the next book, Feyre says, how did you get captured? And he says, well, usually Cassian or Azriel are with me, and they usually drink my wine when I'm at these events. And this time I told them not to come because I maybe it's something like he was suspicious of the circumstances or something. And he didn't want them to be captured by her.
Also, Cassian and Azriel would not be able to get out. Whereas like Nuala and Caradwyn, girl, these two chicks can go anywhere and do anything. And like, good luck stopping them.
Azriel might be able to, because he can shadow jump.
He's also like so much more known though. If you saw Nuala and Caradwyn, you would not know who they were. So they can just blend and disappear.
Yeah. You are 100% right. Yeah.
What else do you want to talk about?
One thing I do have written down is the worm, the Midgard worm. Midgard is a place in Norse mythology. And we know that her next book series is going to be about Norse mythology, but also in book 3 of Crescent City, when Bryce is in Prythian and they're walking the tunnels, they are Midgard worm tunnels, and she kills one with the star sword. Worth putting in the encyclopedia.
Yeah. Also, eventually, I can't wait until can we just already meet a character with an 8-pointed star already so we can just start talking about it? Ugh, God. Already.
Can we just read these books faster?
Yeah, like we did in 2022 when we read them all. And
where we read all of them in
2.5 months.
Yeah. I think that's all I have.
So I think that finishes our episode. Next week, we'll be reading chapters 41 through 46 of ACOTAR. And that finishes the book. That's the end of this season. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe below or wherever you get your podcasts. We can also be found on Instagram at SJ Masterclass. That's 2 A's, SJMAASTERCLASS. And by email at sjmasterclass, spelled the same way, .com. And we want to hear from you. What did you think of this episode? What do you think about our thoughts? Let us know in the comments.
Reb, do you know what I got to really go for right now?
What could you go for right now?
I would love a margarita.
Oh my God. Do you want to go grab some margs and maybe edit this episode?
I'm down if you are.
How about I see you in like 15 minutes?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. I'll see you then.
See you then. Bye, guys.
Bye.